Question number 19 on solving trig equations. Let's bring everything to one side of the equation. The skill that I would like to use is factoring. In order to factor, we need to make sure that we have everything equal to 0 so we can use the zero product property. Now that everything is on one side of the equation, I notice that this term, even though it has some length here, shares a common factor with this second term. They both have cosecant. That's the greatest common factor, cosecant. So I'm going to take that cosecant and I'm going to factor it and put it in front of a set of parentheses so that if I did the distributive property here, it would return to cosecant times secant, which means this needs to be secant, and cosecant times -2. So this needs to be -2. It's still equal to 0. And now that it's in factored form and it's equal to 0, we can use the zero product property that says set each factor equal to 0. So secant is the reciprocal of sine. So I'm looking for a sign of no solution. That doesn't exist. So that will give me no answers. And this one, I'm looking for the secant of x minus 2. If I set that equal to 0, I get the secant of x equals 2. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So secant means hypotenuse over adjacent. So that means the cosine would be adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'm looking for an angle whose cosine is 1/2. If you're struggling with that, cosine means adjacent. So I'm looking for an angle whose cosine is 1/2. So it's not 30, because 30 would be opposite of 1/2. So it has to be 60 degrees. So that's pi over 3. Cosine is also positive in the fourth quadrant. So all the way around would be 6 pi's over 3. I'm 1 pi over 3 short of a full circle. So 5 pi's over 3. Question 16. I'm going to bring this 1 over to the other side so that it's equal to 0. I have sine squareds and sines, so I'm going to need to factor. If you're struggling to see the factors here, go ahead and use a substitution. Every place that it said sine of x, I'm changing that to the letter A. So I'm looking for numbers that multiply to give me -2 and add to give me 1. You do not need to build a box or an X for this one. There's only one way to get 2a squared, and that's to have 2a and a. Only one way to get a 1. It's got to be a 1 and a 1. And if I make this positive and I make this negative, then when I multiply, I get positive 2a minus 1a, and that adds to give me 1a. So then I will set each factor equal to 0. And I'll set this factor equal to 0. Then I'll go back and replace the a with the sine of x. So this will say the sine of x equals 1/2. So what angle is opposite 1/2? 60 degrees. And 30 degrees, pi over 6. And 30 degrees in the second quadrant as well. What angle has a sine of -1? For this one, I need to draw myself a little picture. I always do my signs of zeros and ones on the unit circle so I could see the axes. This is the angle. That's y value is -1. So that one has the sign of -1. That's 3 pi over 2. It's a 90-degree angle between the third and fourth quadrant. Final question. I can see right away that these two terms, tan x cosecant x minus 2 tan x, share a common factor of tangent, leaving a cosecant and a 2. So what angle has an opposite of 0 and adjacent of 1? Well, a 0 would be opposite 0. But if you'd like to see a picture, opposite of 0, adjacent of 1, or opposite of 0, adjacent of -1 would also have a tangent of 0. So those are both acceptable answers. And then we'll set this one equal to 0 as well. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So sine means opposite over hypotenuse. So this must be hypotenuse over opposite. So if I take this and flip it over, looking for an angle whose sine is 1/2. If you were struggling to see that 1, I like to write my cosecant of x equals 2. I like to write it as 2 over 1, so that when I flip it over, you can see that the opposite was 1. Hypotenuse over opposite, opposite over hypotenuse. What angle is opposite of 1/2? That's 30 degrees. So I'll write it as pi over 6, and 30 degrees in the second quadrant as well. It's 5 pi over 6. Why is the answer both of those? Here's a 30-degree angle, and opposite is up, so positive 1/2. Here's another 30-degree angle that's opposite is up, so that's also 1/2. If we're talking about splitting up our circle into sixths, this is our first sixth, then we'd have 2 pi's over 6, 3 pi's over 6, 4 pi's over 6. Half a circle would be 6 sixths. We are 1 pi over 6 short of making it to 6 pi's, so we must be at 5 pi's over 6.